We've had
Yes.
like 4 different viewpoints now on timing, and here's the most important thing. It doesn't matter whether it's 7 years or 100 years. What matters most is that your organizations are having meaningful conversations. And in my practice, I don't see that happening enough with any emerging technology. You send thought leaders to conferences like these, you take a bunch of notes, you go back, they're synthesized and optimized and put out as a fancy report, but there's nobody who is, there's no real effort in continuing to monitor what's happening at the fringe, even if that, whatever is going to happen is 100 years or, 20 years or 15 years or whatever, right?
But so with, go ahead.
I think there's organizations and the kind of people that are in this room, and I think they should be looking for those fringe and disruptive technologies, because it's actually quite difficult sometimes for organizations to adopt some of these technologies. I mean, no one likes firing, 50 or 100 people and replacing them with a machine. But so it's that is not necessarily the way that this happens.
Like that.
So, yeah, but
Nice.
but many don't. It's it's a human relationship in most companies. But where they get blindsided is by the competitor. That, of course, does that. The competitor starts with the disruptive technology and has a much lower cost structure, and all of a sudden they find that they have to let go of those 50 people anyway because of what Amy's talking about. There's also, in addition to organizations and businesses which face kind of disruptive pressures from this technology, I think there's also a significant policy question. And so, what is the social contract in a world where less human labor is needed because of these machines? Or if it is needed, to Brad's point about personal trainers, when the only jobs that are left are ones that you get because you're just a human, then we know what that's going to do from a supply and demand perspective to the wages you can earn from that job. And you might theoretically be able to have a lot of leisure, but the fact is that we still have a money-based economy.
So I
People
think
still
everybody
need to buy
here has
things.
mentioned something along these lines of like, this all works out as long as you find some suitable way of distributing wealth. And at the moment, wealth distribution is based on an assumption of a scarcity of labor. And so as long as we have that assumption, we're going to struggle. And the one country in the world that perhaps most strongly has that assumption baked into its psyche is the United States of America.
Shouldn't we be more optimistic about this in that if this problem arises, it will pay for its own fix?
Yeah, so over time, it will. So that growth and that productivity increase will make a basic income much easier to afford, but you have to provide people with a means to participate in the economy when they no longer have, through no fault of their own, the ability to sell their labor into the economy. And so that's the idea behind a universal basic income. It doesn't preclude you from working, and you don't get penalized for
And you're
working.
not recommending it now, is that right? You're saying in the future
that's right. It's a solution that we need to consider in the future. We need to get the dialogue going because these things do take a long time to work through the political process. And so, so this is kind of preemptively, Neil Jacobstein, who's at Singularity University, had an interview recently where he talked about how poor societies are at seeing the train wreck coming and trying to proactively, have the conversation and try and work against the train wreck actually coming. And I think that's where we are now, is really starting that process.